It's a common saying that in order to get your boat in the water, you actually have to set a date and stick to it. But how in the world do you prioritize the projects that need to be done to be able to meet that kind of a deadline? Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. Today I'm talking about deadlines and prioritizing those kinds of projects. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Marine Depot Direct, your source for affordable, quality stainless steel hardware. Upgrade your boat with marine-grade stainless steel hardware and accessories like port lights, deck hatches, through hulls, and much more. Make your boat restoration easy and affordable. Use coupon code BG15 for 15% off your first order. MarineDepotDirect.com. Affordable stainless for your boat. One of the things that we dealt with very recently was moving onto the boat. And I'd been talking about it for a while on the blog, that we were moving out of the little rental place that we were living in, the house sitting gig that we had, and moving onto the boat by April 1st. And I kept talking about these projects that we were doing. And one of my readers was really concerned because he thought we were moving onto the boat and putting the boat in the water on the 1st of April. And he could not understand why we had certain things that we were working on. It made me realize very much that when you have these kinds of deadlines, and it's super smart to give yourself a date, but when you have those kinds of deadlines, you really fine-tune and nail in what projects have to be done to be able to get there. Currently, we're on the hard. We've been on the hard for the endless 2 weeks, as I put it, and we are working hard to get essential projects done to be able to put the boat in the water. Well, how do you decide what those essential projects are? And a number of those have to do with what needs to be done to actually be able to put the boat in the water safely. Clearly, if you have holes in the bottom of the boat that aren't filled or you can't seal off, that's not a good thing because the boat will sink if you put the boat in the water when you have holes there. So for us, one of those gotta be done before we put the boat in the water is we have to get our through hulls done. Another one for us involves the rig. The rig is not just a new mast, which we did get, but it involves all the rigging that holds up that mast. Bowsprit and the boomkin are integral parts of our mast and our rigging because those are the parts where our forestay and backstay get attached. Could we put the boat in the water with a mast not fully stayed? Yeah, we probably could. Having all the wires hooked up means that the rig is as stable as it's going to be, and we actually think that's kind of important. As soon as we put the boat in the water, we actually have to move it. We can't go 50 yards off the dock and drop the hook. There's no place in this creek to actually anchor because there are way too many boatyards and marinas and that sort of thing. So we actually have to take the boat and go out and into quote-unquote open-ish water to get it around to a place where we can anchor safely. So making sure that the rig is as supported as it can be, we think, is very important. Another one of those things that we need to do before we can put the boat in the water involves the rudder. Again, that reader was great and pointed out that yes, we could put the rudder on the boat when it's in the water. And he's 100% correct. We could. The thing is, the rudder is dealing with a whole lot of different kinds of things right now. We've fixed warp in it. We're redoing the fiberglass casing that goes around it. We will be putting barrier coat and bottom paint on it. It's a lot easier to do that on the hard when we're in the yard rather than trying to deal with all that kind of yucky stuff on the boat and having it be on the deck. The other thing is that our rudder is wood and it floats and it weighs over 100 pounds. When we have the boat on the hard, gravity works in our favor to help put that rudder back on, as opposed to in the water, where trying to line up 3 pintles and gudgeons and have it lock down and smosh down into place. Let me just say that it's really hard to do that when you're trying to fight a piece of wood that's trying to float away from you, and it's 5 feet from the top of the water. So, yeah, getting the rudder done, absolutely, we think it's a priority before we go in the water. And the fourth big thing for us is engine and electrical. Yes, we're a sailboat. Absolutely, we love to sail, and the engine is not critical. However, the engine is a very important and integral component to our whole electrical system, which involves lights and fans and navigation equipment and radios and anchor lights and all that kind of stuff. And so getting the engine with the batteries and the whole electrical system operational, yeah, we think of that as being very critical before we go back in the water. It's easy to get sucked into thinking about all the projects that you have to do. I love hearing it when people will ask me, well, when are you going to be done? And I laugh because it's a sailboat. It's a boat. It's never actually done. There will always be upgrades and projects and little things that we need to do on a regular basis. There are big things, though, that have to be done in order to meet certain deadlines. And though we don't have a hard and fast date to put the boat in the water, mostly because sometimes these kinds of projects, well, not even sometimes, these kinds of projects that are required for us to get the boat in the water, as we get closer to getting them done, we are dialing in the different parts that we need. For instance, with the rig and the bowsprit and the boomkin, we thought we were just going to reuse some of the old rigging that we had, which would have been fine. And then we said, well, hold on a second. We've got all brand new standing rigging. Why aren't we replacing the whisker stays and the bob stay and the boomkin stays? Let's get new wire for those particular pieces of kit and get new stay lock fittings. And we realized that we wanted those just a few days ago, and we ordered them from Defender, only to find out a couple of days after we'd ordered it that actually all those are back ordered. So some of these timeline pieces, they're a little bit beyond our control. That's why we haven't set a date to put the boat back in the water yet. We're getting closer, but there are a number of projects that have to be done. And how did we identify that they had to be done? We looked at what we would need immediately when we went in the water. There are many other projects on the list. For example, we currently don't have a head on the boat. The head, because we already have the through hulls installed for it, the head is something we can tackle when we are in the water. There's some work that we need to do on the bulwarks. That we can do when we're at anchor somewhere. That doesn't have to be done before we put the boat in the water. The stanchions that we're going to install, those don't have to be done before we go in the water. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be done, but it doesn't have to be done before we go in the water. So in order to meet your deadlines, you have to think about priorities and what those entail. I'm looking forward to seeing you once all of our projects, our priority projects, to getting back in the water. Once those are all done and we're splashing, I can't wait to share an anchorage with you somewhere, and we can all talk about what the next projects are that we each need to do. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love it when you share us with your friends. We love it when you subscribe. And we love it when we hear from our listeners. There's a link to both Carolyn's email and mine in the show notes. Have the most spectacular week.